Okay, so again, you're looking for something that hasn't been photoshopped. You can see right here, for instance, this one, the difference between the two. And this is a nice before and an after. Most things have been photoshopped if they're in sort of any kind of publication. So you can like look through these. You can see it. They're pretty interesting to look through actually. Some of these where somebody took professional photographs of somebody famous and then they've been photoshopped to take out any blemishes that they think. This one looks pretty close to the same. And so in magazines and things, you'll notice that it's very unrealistic. And all these people are just people, just like anyone else. And they don't look wonderful all the time. And most of the time, you think they look wonderful because whatever picture they've got has been photoshopped. So I'm just going to grab this one right here. You can see I think that this one right next to it has been photoshopped, so it looks a little bit different. Looks like they added some eye makeup or something, I don't know what, and they changed the color around a little bit. Alright, but this is the original raw image. And so just save this like you normally would, hit control, click it, save image as, the usual thing. Um, and so I've got this up now on my Photoshop page. So just find the file and open that file. Alright, so I'm going to go through just a few tools. Just note that a lot of this is very much trial and error, and it all sort of depends on like what you're working with. So the first thing you probably want to do is get your lighting right, because you'll be doing stuff on different layers and you want that to match. So I'm going to go up to image and then adjustments, and if you need to, you can change the exposure or the brightness, something like that. So if I go to the brightness, maybe I want to brighten this up just a little bit, and image adjustments, and let's see what else. I didn't do anything with the contrast. Maybe I should try to do something with that. No, I think I'm going to not do that. Just mess around with some of these. Shadows and highlights might be a good one to mess around with. Yeah. Yes, it has to be a portrait and it has to be something high resolution so you can really zoom in on it. Alright, so I'm going to move my shadows up just a tad bit. Like that. Hit OK. Alright, so this is what I'm going to start out working with. And first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to go to my spot healing brush tool. And on my background layer, I'm going to go to this. I'm going to zoom in on this, and I'm going to just go in and take away any little blemishes that I see that are obvious. You see that right here, you can see all the tiny little pores on her skin. Generally, these kinds of things are photoshopped out. So it's a little bit tedious to go through and do this. This isn't a slow process. It's something that takes a long time. So I'll try to just focus on this particular side right here. So I'm going to go through. I'm going to just spot healing brush tool, all these little areas. And if you mess something up, just go backwards. If it doesn't look right after you did it, just go backwards on it. No big deal. Try stuff out though, just see how it looks. And so you'll go through, spend a bunch of time doing this. So I would start out again with the spot healing brush when you're doing your own, because you're going to be creating a new layer here pretty soon, and you just want to make sure you've got all this other stuff done first. Also, you don't want to do too much. You don't want to do too little, and you don't want to do too much. It's sort of a nice balance between the two. If you do too much, it doesn't look right. It looks like it doesn't look natural. Okay, so again, I'm just focusing on this particular side right here, this area. There's lots of areas that we can do this to, but let's just focus right here. Okay, the next thing I want to do is I'm going to create a new layer. I'm going to go back to my background layer. And then I'm going to go to my eyedropper tool. And what I want to do is match the color. I want to get rid of some of this coloration under her eye right here. So where it's a little bit more red, I want to see if I can cover that up a little bit. So with my eyedropper, I want to go as close as possible to that spot so I can get the color right. And I just click there. And you'll see that that color shows up here on the left side. Now I'm going to go to my top layer and I'm going to go to the brush tool. My mode right here is normal. You can mess around with some of these to see how they work. And also my brush, the hardness is, it's about 40%. You can do a little less, maybe a little more. My opacity right here is at around 20%. And so my opacity is at about 20%. And so now I am going to go over this with the color that I just sampled. So I'm going to just go over it just slightly. And it should just barely show up because it's at about 20%. You don't want to do it at the full 100%, otherwise it'll look kind of weird. So if I bump my opacity right now up to 100, watch what happens. You'll go over it and it's very obvious that you just put that over there and it just doesn't look right. So that's why this is bumped down to about 20%. Excuse me. Okay. Now, also there's this spot right here underneath the eyes that's a little bit dark. So you can use also this brush if you go to your eyedropper tool and then you want a eyedropper somewhere around here and then brush over the top of it. That's one way of doing it. Or you can go to your burn dodge tool. I would go to the dodge tool because I want to make it lighter. So I go there to my dodge tool and I'm just going to go over this a little bit. Let's see, my exposure right now is at 40%. You don't want it to be too high because you want to just make it barely, oops, I'm on the wrong layer anyways. So I need to be on my background layer to make this work. You can see that it just lightens that stuff up just a little bit. If it doesn't look right, you can go over the top of it. So that one made it a little too dark, that last one. There's only so much you can do with that. You may want to just give it a once over with your brush tool. So I'm going to go back to this. I'm going to maybe sample something right about there. Go to my brush tool, go to my upper layer, and I'm just going to go once over with this. And you probably want to fade that. A lot of time you have to zoom out and just make sure that that looks okay. If that doesn't look right when you zoom out, then you might want to change that around a little bit. So it looks okay. It doesn't look great. I may have kind of gone over that a few too many times. Let's see how that looks. Just step backward. Okay, that looks a little more realistic. So I'm going to eyedropper this in a different spot. Maybe over here. Go to my brush. And I'm going to take my opacity down just a tad bit there. I just want it to be very slight. And you'll probably have to fade that out just a hair right there. Okay. Now I'm zooming back out. I'm looking at it. Alright, that looks okay. When you do work in one spot, you'll notice that the texture of the skin changes from you're smoothing the texture out. So if you have other stuff right around here that has the original texture, it doesn't quite look the same. So you just got to be really careful with not using too much of your brush tool, but just using the very, very minimum amount. Alright, so I'm going to zoom back in here. If you would like to try to, I'm going to go back to my spot healing brush tool. If you would like to try to add some makeup stuff, like add eyeliner or something like that, feel free to do that with your brush. Also, there are a lot of tutorials on this exact thing, on touching people's faces up, and there's a lot of people that have really good ways of doing this, that do this professionally, that are probably way better than me. And but this is a good just starting out way to see how you can do on this. And it's very tedious. You want to take the time to go do a lot of tiny little things on here. With your spot healing brush, you're going to spend a lot of time just zooming way in and really getting this smoothed out. Does anybody have any questions? Yep.
What's like the goal of this project?
Good question. The goal of this project is to take a picture that has not been photoshopped, that is just a raw image with maybe no makeup or anything like that, and then Photoshop the portrait and just clean it up as much as you possibly can. Something that would be like if you were doing it for a magazine, maybe something like that. And just do the best you can. And then when you post it on your website, put a before and an after. So make sure you've got the original image and then you've got the after image as well. Okay.